I work with we are going to try very much to just to manage our time, and so this session we are going to have a discussant. So we are going to have a plenary speaker, and then from there we will go into groups. There are a few questions that I will be sharing with you, so that we can come up with some solutions, or maybe a few issues that you think are critical for us to be able to address, and then we move on. Hopefully by then we'll be done with 1 hour. So our speaker today is Engineer Simon Thuo. I'll just give some biography, just a little bit of background about him. Mr. Simon Thuo has a background in civil engineering, water resources, and utility management. Simon has 21 years of direct experience setting up water and wash networks, such as the Kenya District Water Supply and Sanitation Committees, the former Water Utility Partnership, WUP, hosted by World Bank, the Water and Sanitation Program by World Bank, the African Water Association, more than 400 utilities in Africa, the joint water sector working groups in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Ethiopia. Between 2003 and 2012, Mr. Simon Thuo was the regional coordinator for GWP. It's a global water partnership in Eastern Africa, establishing water partnerships and supporting countries in the Nile Basin and Greater Horn of Africa prepare and implement sustainable water development programs to meet social and economic needs while reducing vulnerability to climate-related disasters. As an advisor on water and food security in Rwanda between 2012 and 2013, Simon formulated the 5-year water resource development program, justifying investments in water, infrastructure, and institutional strengthening to underpin the country's ambitious economic development and poverty reduction strategy. 2, linking the population and economic growth to water storage while connecting disaster risk reduction, climate resilience, and water in the national economy within the forward budget to ensure synergy and efficient use of financial and natural resources. His subsequent work on climate resilience in the Eastern Africa and Nile countries and enhancing investments through public-private partnerships have strengthened the ability of public institutions to manage adverse climate impacts while attracting blended finance. I have personally known Simon Thuo for quite some time. We have worked with him at WASPA on a number of issues, policies, working within the counties on CIDPs, and a number of things within the sector. So he has deep knowledge of the sector as far as water and water resources management issues are concerned. And so today he will be speaking to us on inclusion of youth and women in WASH for sustainable development and sanitation services. Mr. Simon Thuo, very much welcome, and for him as he walks to the podium. Karibu sana. Former youth. Yes.
We seem to be having a technology challenge at the moment. So
yes. For projection, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. So as they sort it out, maybe you can be sharing a few things. You have 10 minutes to make your presentation, then we shall move on. All right.
So just by way of background, how many of you have yes, by way of background,
How many of you are from the environment, have an environmental background? Okay. And how many have engineering? Okay, another sizable number. And how many of you are from the social sciences? Okay, economists? Yeah, the reason I'm asking this is trying to see if we can set a baseline. What do you think are the most critical challenges facing society today? Whether it is Kenya, East Africa, Africa, or the world? What is dominating our headlines? Yes? Unemployment. Very good.
Environmental degradation, climate change.
Yes, climate change. What else? Environmental degradation. Yes? Access to clean and potable water. Okay, all these are right. But there is one overwhelming issue which we are facing right now, and that is COVID. However, the reason for COVID, which is only like 1%, it's the tip of the iceberg, is environmental degradation. And COVID, as I said, is a very small part of a huge number of diseases which are going to be confronting the world, particularly Africa, that are arising from environmental degradation. They are called zoonotic diseases. When you destroy forests, when you destroy habitat for the wildlife, for bats, for all sorts of animals, they come out into the open and they start interacting with our domestic our domestic animals and our human beings. And so what has happened is that at the moment, up to 75% of all emerging diseases are zoonotic, and they are caused by this environmental degradation. But it also has an impact on other services. So it is working now. How do I move next? Okay, so I think you have already explained this part, so you can go to the next one. And what I'm going to provide is like a kind of perspective on how the youth can be involved in this restoration, environmental restoration. Next, please. Yes, so as I was saying, climate change is not the biggest problem we have at the moment. Biodiversity collapse is the biggest. I don't know if we can dim the lights a little bit so we can see the screen. Yes. Do you know the guy whose picture is up there? Yeah, that's Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister. About 2 months ago, this is what he said, reflecting on what has been happening around the world. 96% of the mammals on the planet now are either human beings or oxen or pigs or livestock that human beings rely on, 96%. And then 70% of all the birds in the world are now chicken. Only 4% of the mammals that remain are wild, all the way from whales to elephants to all the wild animals that we know. So you can imagine a system that had been created by nature over billions of years has now been reduced primarily to just the human element, and that is unsustainable. So 75% of the land surface is significantly altered. Over 85% of the wetlands have been lost. And most of this is happening because of agricultural activities, agricultural expansion, whether for crop or for livestock. And this land degradation is affecting the well-being of at least 3.2 billion people in the world. That's almost half the world's population. And by 2025, as you know, there is continued water stress. Half the countries facing this water stress will be African, 690 million people. A large part of Kenya is in that category. And then disruption of economic and social systems, which has come as a result of COVID, has created a very sharp focus on this environmental degradation and the connection between human health ecosystems and the impacts on economy and society. So the short of it is that some of the things you've really been focusing on, like non-revenue water, old dilapidated infrastructure, and so on, these are going to be very small issues when you compare with the impact that environmental degradation is causing. Next slide. Then we have another tragedy for Africa. As you mentioned, unemployment and so on. In sub-Saharan Africa, the cost of non-action to stop erosion, for instance, it costs more than almost $300 billion loss every year, and this is almost 12.5% of the GDP of the sub-Saharan Africa. So we are trying very hard to get 1% growth in GDP, but we are losing up to 13% of the GDP. It will take almost 15 years to recover through the economic process the loss that we are experiencing as a result of degradation of our land and water systems. And the recurrent costs of soil and water management of no action. So for every dollar you put in, you get more than $7 back from environmental services and spin-offs. And Africa could generate $72 billion every year if the countries prevent soil erosion on about 100 million hectares. And this is where the Africa 100 initiative comes from. So we're saying that investment in sustainable land management would cost only about $10 billion, and therefore every $1 spent in rehabilitation will generate more than $30 of benefits. And investing these funds through the youth employment would not only provide multiple benefits for the environment, but also for society and for the economies. So we have the tragedy of Africa, which is the environmental side, but we also have the tragedy of Africa through the youth. Almost 60% of Africa's population in 2019 was under the age of 25, and the median age was 19.8. So most of us are close to or almost double the average age. Africa's population is very young. Every 24 hours, there are 33,000 young Africans entering the labor market. Only 40% of them will find anything to do. 60% will be unemployed and stuck in a permanent waithood. You know, I'm waiting for this, I'm waiting for that, waiting for opportunities. 60% of them are caught in that trap. Yet there is so much that they could be doing in terms of restoring the environment. And again, there is a widening mismatch between education and employers' needs. Across the continent, unemployment among 15 to 24-year-olds with advanced education is higher than for those with basic or no education. So the more educated you are, the less likely you are able to get a job. Now, do you see the problem? And according to the UNHCR, 70% of African migrants are escaping the continent, not because of war, not because of famine, not because of any other issue. It is because of the lack of jobs. There are no prospects. So much of our population, especially the young, who could be solving the environmental problems, are escaping because there is no mechanism to engage them gainfully. Next slide, please. So again, 85% of the population is below 45, especially in Kenya's arid and semi-arid lands, which are faced with the most difficult of these circumstances. Next. Next, please. So And it is, you might say, a vicious cycle. 80% of Kenya's population is dependent on charcoal or firewood. There is not enough charcoal or firewood. So what do? They exploit whatever exists. Trade in charcoal is one of the most critical areas that causes degradation, and, well, we seem to be unable to deal with it. And people understand, they equate upstream degradation, especially around Mount Kenya. If you talk to people in Samburu, you talk to people in Isiolo, and most parts of Laikipia, they really consider upstream degradation as their biggest threat. Next slide. So we have to look at a solution that addresses both the causes and looks at the potential solutions and engages the youth in a more substantive way. And this is, I think, how many of you have heard of this nexus, the water, energy, food nexus? Okay, just a few. But those of you in the water sector, you need to consider this very critically. Much of the threat that the water systems face is because of agricultural activities upstream and because of illegal logging, okay, in all places. So when you're trying to look at how do you protect, next slide please. Sorry, no, the one before. How do you prevent the catchment and most of the areas from becoming to what you're looking at on the right? You have to consider the issue of water resources. You have to look at the ecosystem and how it is related to agriculture and hydropower. And then the energy needs, and this primarily is charcoal and fuel wood, yeah, charcoal and firewood, and then the poor agricultural practices that we have, especially in the fragile lands. Next, and this very much affects the country's ability to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Next, please. So we need to make a strong case for the linkage between the three sectors: water, agriculture, and energy. And our energy is the one on environment. And to do this, we need to create awareness. What is the issue? What is the implication? What needs to be done? And then to create a desire, what we keep saying, political will, to create change. And then have proper knowledge of what is really happening and what is the implication. Like the presentation I have given you, we have a lot more on this kind of issue in order to develop the ability to identify specifically what are the intervention points that are required, and to be able to implement and to monitor what is happening. Because the other problem with most of our countries in Africa, we do projects, but we don't follow up. We do not monitor. We are very good at cutting the tape, but we are very poor at monitoring what is happening and reinforcing its successful maintenance. Do you know that how many of you, what would you estimate the percentage of utilities that are non-performing, facilities? What are facilities that are non-performing from your experience or from your literature review? How many of them do you think are non-performing in terms of percentage? Yes? It is between 30% and 50%. Billions of dollars worth of investment on the ground is lying idle because we don't monitor and ensure that it is maintained adequately. And this is even worse when we consider most of the utilities in Kenya. Next. So, the best avenue for this intervention in Kenya at the moment is to understand how counties plan and implement the 5-year CIDPs. How many of you have been involved in CIDP process? Only one. This is unfortunate because this is very, very instrumental. You have a unique opportunity because the current CIDP, the current How many of you know what the CIDP is in the first place? Let me start there. Less than half. This is dangerous. So I think we need a lot more sensitization. The County Integrated Development Plan is the 5-year, I think Vincent referred to it. This is the 5-year development plan at the county level that determines what the county is able to do and what all the other development agencies from USAID, the World Bank, the Danes, and everyone else, what they are trying to do is to see how they can be part of that development, how they can inform that process of CIDP at the county level, so that it is stronger, robust, and when they try to implement their projects on the ground, they are harmonized, so that you stop duplicating projects, wasting funds, and so on. So it's very important to understand this cycle of CIDP. And then it is also the 10th year after devolution. So there is the wider spatial development planning that is also going to start. And that one is important, especially when, as water managers, water utility managers, you want to start protecting certain regions where your catchments are. Are we together? Because unless you zone them, you will always be following after the fact. You need to zone them, have them ring-fenced, so that in the next 10 years, you are assured of protecting your catchment. And this is not only for the county governments, it is also important for the utilities and for the NGOs. You must see how you become part of this cycle. Next, please. And so the key steps are to identify within this financial year, 2021-2022, so we are coming to the end of the current one, the one that starts. Are there opportunities to start influencing what happens in the next 1 year? And then identify strategic cooperation areas for the CIDP 2022. That process is going to start, so you better familiarize yourself with the current CIDP so that you can know where to intervene in the next one. And then you need, I would say, at least some champions within key departments in the county. These are the departments for agriculture, the department for water, the department for environment. Because those are the three that can work in a synergistic way to help to start, moving the needle towards sustainability. Next, please. And then, for the youth particularly, I think there is need for everybody to start moving away from volunteerism. The youth need to be trained, but they need to see that they have a meaningful career, that they are improving their life opportunities from this engagement. We need to stop just planting trees on the, Forest Day, and having banners and radio and so on. We need to look at it as a systemic thing, but we also need to understand that the youth involved cannot keep volunteering for 15 years. They need income, and they need career development in the process. And the thing is that there is a lot of interest now, even from the corporates, because they are also concerned about the sources of their livelihoods, the sources of the water that they use in their processes. For instance, I don't know how many of you, is there anybody from Nairobi? Nairobi Water? Nairobi Water, okay. Do you know, for instance, that East African breweries wanted to leave Kenya? And the reason they were going to leave was not because of competition from beer from Tanzania or anywhere else. It was because the source of water for East African breweries was severely threatened. And so they got together with a number of other actors, including Coca-Cola, Pentair, with TNC, the Nature Conservancy, and other actors. And they created the Apatana Nairobi Water Fund, together with the Ministry of Environment and Kengen, because Kengen is also very concerned about the siltation and its effect on the dams. So they have created this fund, and its primary purpose is to see how to protect the catchment. Now, the idea, the success has been enormous because they are saving a lot in terms of treatment chemicals, in terms of breakages, and more seriously, a lot of the water that was getting diverted from the systems, particularly during droughts. What has happened is that the farmers have been given capacity to create their own storage from rainfall so that they stop diverting the streams. So more than 12 billion liters of water are now saved by the farmers. So they no longer need to go to the river or put pumps in the river. And at the same time, they've been given avocado, banana, and brachia and other grasses to plant for their livestock. So they stop agricultural practices which are harmful. So this is the way of the future. And as water managers, I'm just hoping that you will look beyond non-revenue water, burst pipes, illegal connections, start looking upstream. That is where the real danger lies. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Simon. Can we give him a better round of applause? Good. So just before you sit, the next session will be group discussion, but just to benefit from your deep knowledge, perhaps there's a burning question or a contribution. I will allow that before we go into the groups. Is there any? Very quickly, because of time also.
Yes.
There is one?
Do we have a roving microphone?
Yes. Okay, we can start with that one very quickly.
Thank you, Engineer Tuo, and for the wonderful presentation. And it's good to know that we can have a nexus that can work together and achieve all these things. And now my very simple question is, how do you expect these youth who are already volunteering to now be part of some other things that they can do? You also consider some other things. You consider the economic part of this person. You consider maybe they're already, they have other commitments, or I'll say maybe pressing needs than that. So how are you going to intervene if you are the one? Maybe you're taking an ideal person, or maybe somebody like me who has this opportunity to sit here and have that conversation, be enlightened, but there's a mass the way we had in the morning. So how are we going to go about that? Do you have an idea, a model or something? Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yes, that's a very good question. The gentleman who spoke this morning from Korogosho, who was he? Yes. I don't know if we were in a session with you recently with the UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. There was somebody, I think, from either Korogosho or one of those places. What is happening is that a lot, on the 5th of June, that is next month, on the World Environment Day, there is the launch of the Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, 2021 to 2030. This Decade for Ecosystem Restoration is looking at reversing the degradation in many of these lands. As we said, already 75% of them are seriously damaged, including, you might say, Korogosho and rivers, and so on. What they're going to be looking for, number one, organized youth groups. Maybe have a youth group like the one of Korogosho working with Nairobi Water to look at how to restore the river system. I mean the rivers, yeah, whether it's catchment and so on, and then make a proposal. And there is a lot of funding that is going to come for this kind of thing. And secondly, if you are working in a utility, are there youth groups that you can engage? I remember Wasingishu was talking about Kijana na Eka. every youth to get about an acre of land for agricultural development. Is it possible to consider doing such a thing for the catchment? I know Wasindishu. Anybody from Wasindishu here or Eldoret Water? Okay, but there is a similar program that is coming up to what they are doing in Upper Tana, Nairobi, or Nairobi Water, to protect the catchment for Eldoret, which is in Elgeyo Marakwet. So they're going to be starting a similar program. Similarly, for Mombasa, there is a similar program coming up. But now instead of awarding this work to contractors who come and go, why not look at how to engage the youth in a meaningful way so that they can also get an income and they're not volunteering, because there has to be a stop to this free labor, so to say. So it's not only for you who are sitting here. I'm hoping that this message goes out to all the utilities, because they are a very useful entry points and they have a significant stake in the outcome. And by the way, I'll give you my contact, or you can get in touch with WIWAS or APHRC, because this is something that we are looking at. How do we take this forward? And the promise is there is significant funding behind this if you are clear. You remember what I presented on the awareness, knowledge, in order to create impact and monitor. You have to go through that process in order to make good project proposals.
Okay, all right. Good. Is there any other?
Anyway, mine is very simple, semundu@gmail.com. That is the easiest.
All right. So I don't see, there's another hand. Yeah, quickly, can you make it short so that we can move to the next one?
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. And mine is to ask, how can we communicate the economic benefits of, like the figures you showed us, so that the youth and women can understand and engage in meaningful labor towards that?
More immediately, we can be able to share the Upper Tana Nairobi Water Fund case study, because they have examined this, they have extracted what are the economic benefits. For every dollar they put in, what has come out as at the moment, which is less than 3-4 years, and then what is expected in the lifetime of the project. Because it has already broken even in less than 3 years. All the money they have put in has been recovered, particularly by Kenya Breweries, Nairobi Water, Kengen. They have recovered their investment. And then the government as a whole is also creating, it's also realizing a lot of benefit, not only from the farmers having water for their crop throughout the year and the effect that has, but also in terms of environmental protection, catchment, restoration, and so on, which is being done at the grassroots. More than 30,000 farmers are benefiting from this.
All right, I'll take one, then there's another one there. Can we take them, the two questions before he responds, so we move?
My question is,
yes.
Other than just doing these corrective measures and engaging these youth at these particular stages, do we have a way on which we can do it at the preliminary stage, at the basic level, like instilling a sense of responsibility to these school-going children, so that when they are growing up, they actually get to grow up with this in their minds, knowing the very well that it is their role to ensure that our ecosystem is intact. So can we have, like, say, programs, school programs, model, at the very basic level?
Yeah. Let's take the other one. I think the gentleman before you respond. Was there another hand? I think that should be the last one, and then this one, those three, and then we move on.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. You brought a good point that we should shift our attention from looking at the past perhaps and look at our catchment areas, look upstream. And you've also said that most of our water catchment areas are being taken over by agricultural activities, which is brought by population growth, and that is inevitable. So is there a way, or is there someone trying to work out or to counter and bring the balance between the population growth and the safety of our water catchment areas? Thank you.
then the last one there, so that engineer can take all of them.
Well, I'm Paul Mahala from Naivasha Water. My question goes to water and food security. I understand we have very high level of food insecurity in Kenya. And the big reason is lack of water because our farmers don't rely on rainwater. And as you can see, we don't have very land that we can rely on, especially even this year, some of the areas will be facing food insecurity. So my question is it possible maybe we come up with a way whereby we can be able to provide water for a whole year, even for the farmers, so that even water companies do not always concentrate on domestic provision of water, but also agricultural water for the benefit of our people. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you for those three questions. Very good questions and very much on point. Number one, about educating the future. This is something very critical. Unfortunately, we are in injury time. We should have done that at independence, 1980 and so on. So now we have to see, first of all, how do we stop you might say there is a hemorrhage. Yeah? We are bleeding, so we have to stop that first. So what measures do we take now? But in the longer term, I remember when I was working in Busia about 3-4 years ago, I was supporting the county government actually to come up with a policy. First of all, to revive. You remember the 4K clubs? I don't know how many of you participated in 4K club when you were kids? Yes, we are trying to see how do we revitalize those clubs. It is happening in Mombasa. A couple of organizations are looking at how that can be done, and I think in a number of the other areas. The question about population growth and destruction of catchments, that it is inevitable, that is not right. There is a lot of land in Kenya. Look at how many people live in Singapore on a rock. Small island state, less than 30 square kilometers. The whole of Kenya's population can actually survive and thrive in an area as small as Kiambu. We have a lot of land. A lot of it is degradation because we are using bad practices. So it's not inevitable. It's poor management, poor governance, and lack of understanding on the implications of the kind of when we let degradation run rampant. When you look at that land that is being degraded, that will be forever lost, then you have to stop this. It's not inevitable. The question from Naivasha, actually maybe instead of providing the example from Apatana, Nairobi, yes, you have a very good Imarisha program here, if you know about it. Look at what they were able to do. They convinced the farmers upstream, working with the riparians, growers, and the different stakeholders on how the farmers upstream could conserve the land. And they were provided with funding. Was it payment for ecosystem services?
Yes, yes.
And that yielded enormous benefits for the lake, for the farmers, for the growers, for the wildlife. There were so many benefits. So I think that would be an excellent case study. And if we are allowed, maybe when we are having this excursion, it could be one of the learning trips that the group should take when they come next.
Great. I think we can end there for the questions. Another round of applause for him. Thank you very much. I'm excited to hear what I'm hearing because when I hear challenges, for me, I see opportunities. And just to reiterate what engineer said, the Naivasha, the Imarisha PES program that happened here for some time, the Imarisha, it was very successful, by the way. And what we did at some point is that we picked the learnings that happened here in Naivasha and we took them to Kiambu. This was at KWASNet and GIZ level. So in Kiambu, we were able to bring together farmers. We brought together the private sector and the county government. And of course, a lot of work happened just from the learnings within Kiambu, within Naivasha. And I can tell you that right now, with the issues of climate change, you know, the Paris Agreement, we talk of keeping the increase in temperature below 2%. I can tell you that there's a lot of resources that are going towards mitigating or dealing with the issues of climate change. And you know, a simple way to address climate change issues, the entry point is just water. Because a lot of climate change issues are felt through water. So what am I saying? As youth, we can start positioning ourselves for these things that are happening. I think we've been shown some of the opportunities, the areas where we can get involved so that we are part and parcel of the big discussions or whatever that is going on. There's a lot of information, of course, we would like to share, but then time is really not on our side. But I just wanted to remind you there's a point that engineer raised, and this is the issue to do with wetlands, when he said that around 65% of our wetlands are lost. That might just sound like a statistics, but I can tell you it is something big. Because when you lose your wetlands, what it means that the water that was supposed to be refined through this particular system, it will not be treated, or it will not be brought back to the levels that we need. So what happens? This same heavily contaminated water will find its way into our water courses or the river courses. Then we are talking about a lot of issues that come with that. There are diseases, and now there's a study that I was reading. There's something we are calling antimicrobial resistance related to sanitation issues, and it's all in the water. It's a big challenge, and these opportunities that we can really look into. Instead of just seeing or magnifying the problem, we can be a solution to some of these things. Very well said. Thank you, Simon and Tim. Now we are going to go to the next session, which I think will cut down in terms of the time a little bit. This group work, and to make it simple, I think we need to have 4 groups. I've quickly looked around the room and I've seen that we have 4 rows. I think we can just skip to the rows. It doesn't have to be, we are all going to answer the same question, so it's not about your sector or your area, but there are a few questions that we are going to answer. So I want to call this group 1, then this group 2, group 3, and that one group 4. So what will happen is that I have a set of questions here that I'll give you. Group 1, you can use this flip chart. Group 2, you can use the flip chart behind there, this row. There's a flip chart behind there. Group 3, which is this one, you can use this flip chart. And group 4, this row, there's another flip chart behind there. So I have, when you go to the groups, please appoint somebody to chair, and then somebody has to write, because we want to pick this particular point. So I have the questions here that I will give you, and we can do this exercise in the next 20 minutes so that we move. Very simple. The questions are not long, they're not difficult. Right, just consulting a little bit. We had there are groups already that have secretaries. Those that don't have will have to elect a chair and a secretary. So let's take 20 minutes, and my suggestion is that you don't have to write 10 points. Just simply write those very concentrated points, a minimum of 3, a maximum of 5. So that you don't have to go through a lot of text, but we want serious issues to come out of this. So, can we move to those groups? We continue to maintain the COVID protocols, keep distance, put on your masks, remain on, and then we'll give you the questions. So for this group, you can have this one. Please elect a chair and a secretary. You can use this flip chart. And then this group here, yes. This group. This group, you use the flip chart behind there. Then group 3, you're using this one here. You have the questions here. And then group 4, the flip chart behind. Elect a chair and a secretary. You have the questions here. We are young people, so we don't waste time. We move very, very quickly and simply so that we can finish this exercise. This group, you have a secretary already, that's it? I can choose a chair. This one is settled. The other one is so you guys decide. So I think we are okay here. You have anything that's here? Yes. The chair and the secretary to just take notes. We will have questions. You have a chair and a secretary. You need the chair to lead the discussion, so we have 20 minutes. Yes, as a youth, if you're given an opportunity, you take it very quickly. Yes, thank you. Yes, that's okay. You guys have a chair? That's okay. Please go ahead for the 20 minutes. It's almost 2 o'clock. Let's finish in the next 2 minutes, please. In another 2 minutes, summarize so that we can move on. Kindly. We are waiting for you. I can see you're having fun. And group 4 also. Group 1, you have a lot of points to write. Please summarize. The others are waiting for you. How do you know if it's working? It's working. All right. Group 1, are you done? I'm waiting for you to go back to your seats. Yes. So that we can finish this. Please take back your seats. So we need to finish in the next 10 minutes if we move quickly. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the close of this. We had promised to finish by 2 o'clock. It's already 4 minutes past 2. We started a bit late, so we will take another 6 minutes or so to conclude. Then we will take a group photo as youths. And then from there we will be able to go for lunch. So what we're going to do next is each group from the 4 groups. I'll give you just 2 minutes because I know you've written, so we'll be collecting those scripts. But for the secretary, just to read for us the points that you raised for each group, and then we can finalize. So which group is ready to go? You're ready, group 1? Fine, there's a mic somewhere. You can just read for us the points. There's a microphone somewhere, I don't know. Yes. Just 2 minutes so that we don't take a lot of time. We'll collect those scripts after you take us through what your group came up with.
Okay, thank you. I'm representing Group 1. My name is Frederick Sassia. I'm the organizing secretary Kenya Water Institute Alumni Association. Now, question 1, the youth inclusion in the water sector. We came up with some few points that I'm going to read through. The first one being generally through employment and volunteer programs in the WASH activities. Our second point is through innovation and education events, e.g. organized conferences, community outreach, and school outreach. Question 2, the existing challenges. One was lack of necessary mentorship. The next one was, I'm not explaining because you violated time.
Yeah.
Lack of youth involvement in decision making. Then the third one was lack of funding to foster innovation and necessary knowledge to protect the inventions. Then the last question, which was question 3, the recommendations. One of the recommendations is that youth to be involved in key decision making, especially in the water sector. Then we have design policies that protect youth positions in the sector. The third is develop innovation hubs and accessible funds to help the youth innovate and even grow the innovations. The last one is redesign our employment procedures that require experience at the time of onboarding. Thank you. I think that was what we managed to get.
Thank you very much. A clap for that group. So we'll not go into so much explanation because we need to take care of time. The next group that is ready, I'm just picking random. Group 2, you're ready?
Yes.
Please go. And as you do that, there's this list here. We'll pass it around. If you did not sign, please do sign so that we can have your details and we will be communicating to you. Kindly keep the 2 of them together. Just make sure you sign. Asante.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Crispin from Nairobi Water. I'm representing Group 2. So I'll straight away go to the points. How the youth are included in the water and sanitation. The first point we came up with is that through volunteering in CSR activities, that is corporate sociality activities. Also through provision of labor in water projects. 3, being engaged in research and development. Coming to the challenges, we had myriads of challenges, but we only noted down 5. The first one, the youth are not included in decision making. There is lack of technical know-how and inadequate capacity building. There is also this concept of cheap labor, whereby the youth are called for they're seen as cheap labor. There's also the aspect of age limit, where the age limits them from occupying positions where they could be able to make decisions. And I'm sure you are familiar with the term experience is required in many positions where they're able to make those key decisions. There's also negative perception by the old guards. There's the negative perception by the old guards towards the youth that you just came from campus the other day. What are you telling us? Na hiyo iwafikie.
Sure. It will.
Recommendations. We recommend that youth should be involved in policy making and implementation. Number 2, we also recommend that there should be mentorship programs that should be intentional and to be incorporated in those organizations, in our various organizations. Then there is need also for increase in the resources allocated to the youth. Lastly, though, this one we did right, we want the organizations to support the youth programs like the young water professionals. Thank you very much.
Asante sana. A clap for him. Good, very good points. Itawafikia, you can be sure of that. Group 3, please, if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm Kennedy or Cheng, representing Group 3. And we had a discussion about the 3 questions. Sorry. We had a short discussion about the 3 questions, and some of our deliberations are as follows. In our context, how are the youths involved in water and sanitation? So we took a look on this question based on what we do from the different organizations that we are working with. And inclusion was from some of the utilities and also some private companies and also the government. So we found out that youths are actively involved in marketing of water and sanitation products like pumps. They also are involved in some of the leadership opportunities within the utilities, and also in providing technical support to most of these utilities and companies. The second question, some of the challenges. We found youths are not actively involved in decision making. There is also a company culture where it hinders the youth, the growth of youth. There's also gender stereotyping. This is mostly on women and the young people. There's also a challenge in lack of information, which is hindering participation. There's also intimidation. And let's say in the community projects, there is also the issue of manning of the water projects by only men. And also there was an interesting point where we saw that there is very little collaboration between colleges and the job market. So that might be attributed to the high numbers of unemployment that we are experiencing. So for the third question, on the recommendations, we recommended that the youth are good in ICT and the integration of technology in most of the processes in water resources and water and sanitation. So we said that the youth should be actively involved because of their expertise in ICT. There's also, we recommended capacity building, where we saw most youth have the ideas, but they don't know how to implement them on the ground. There is also a need to include the youth in decision making, and also have recommendations on growth and development in career paths. This will give the youth some kind of courage and motivation to apply for some of these jobs and also take some of the ventures within the water and sanitation sector. That's our recommendation.
Thank you very much. Applause for Group 3. Group 4, kindly.
I'll present for Group 4.
Thank you.
About the first question, we got to see, we were looking at it from the perspective of the utility, the users, and those people from the other sectors. So we got to see that youths are involved most youths are involved at the implementation stages.
Hey, how are you?
Of projects.
Question.
Do
you know where
most youths are also the beneficiaries of water and sanitation infrastructure, like say the water kiosks and the abolition blocks.
Will they need?
And also implementation of new technologies
so that
in the market.
When you live, yes. When I tell them to pick their kind.
About the existing challenges and barriers and gaps for inclusion of youths and women. We got to see that we have this thing called the experience gap. I had another group talk about the experiences, the required onboarding requirements. So that one is actually a challenge because the years required are usually too high, like 6 years experience, 5 years experience. So that is actually a challenge. We also have lack of prioritization of water and sanitation agenda among the youths. When we're speaking of prioritization, it's like say the sanitation topic. When youths go to select courses, say in schools, the sanitation aspect, it's not something that they would consider. It's not among their first choices. And then we have technological gaps between the youths and the already existing workforce. So you go working in an environment where someone called them maguru, the already existing kitambo, let's call them that. So you come up with your idea and your new technology and you're wanting to implement, but how do you make in that particular environment for quite some time? So it becomes very, very difficult for the youth to kind of come up with a new or rather innovative idea. So not addressing the needs of the youths, especially at the decision-making level. This one got to look at it from the point of view that, especially when we are doing public participations, most of these notices at the community level are usually, they're taken to say the chief's office and all that. And this is not something that youth relate with so much. We are technologically advanced. We use the phone, Facebook, social media. So if maybe say these notices for public participation can be taken to such platforms so that we get to see them and then we get to attend such public participation. And then lack of capacity building at the project implementation phase. For question number 3, the recommendations. 1, we need youth to be involved at the policy making and governance stage. We also need to see youth leaders, the CEOs who are youths. Sensitization of youths, so that they're able to pick, especially women, the STEM courses at the campus level. Reviewing the minimum requirement for youths at the job entry level. The 6 years, 7 years experience is too ambitious for us. Maybe if that one can't work, maybe consider reviewing the retirement age for the already existing workforce. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, and applause for that group. Yes, I think these are very serious points that you're raising, and that caught me by surprise, reviewing the retirement age. Government suffers from that. There are people who are very old there, but are you able to hear me, sir? Okay. Yeah, there are people who have not yet retired, and the limit was reviewed sometimes, I think, upwards or something like that. But yes, as we said, itawafikia. I think, Prof, you have a contribution? Karibu sana. Yes.
you said sensitization of youth. I just said by who? Okay? Yeah, so all youth should be involved in decision making. Decision making where? Where? I mean, you have to. Should anything really be? This should happen. How? Where? Nothing should really be. It is us that have this to decide what need to happen. Okay? Because that is, I was in Zimbabwe, so government should. Okay? So it's for us to do this again. The solution may not actually be towards government. Okay? So we must think of platforms to address some of these issues. Okay? Nobody has the solution in their pocket, and because that they are not being. So I just wanted to raise that as just to be a little provocative. You should be mentored by who? Okay? Mentorship. Okay, I've been involved in mentorship. It's actually a mentee. You have to look for the mentor. Okay, and you overheard someone say that in the morning. So I just wanted to raise that issue. What platform should articulate these things? What platform are we thinking about that can help us? And there are things youth can actually do themselves. Because I've been listening, I've not had challenges around private participation. Okay? Because youth can actually have services to sell. Okay? The challenge, one of the challenges is actually funding. So articulating funding mechanisms that can help individual youth. I mean, government is not going to employ all of us. It's not possible. Okay? So are we thinking about funding mechanisms that can actually give us resources to do what we want to do in the sector? Bottling water, producing water filters. Many youth are very innovative. They can actually produce water filters that are selling in the supermarket. They can actually or even sanitary products. So, and so on and so on. But it is, what can we really do? Okay, because if you look at developed countries like the USA, it is actually when they get the idea, or like Israel, they innovate some. Okay, and they eventually find market. And before you know it, that thing becomes business. Okay, so there's this whole feeling that government must be, and there is government somewhere. I'm not sure. Regarding the government, you may be the government that. So my challenge is to say, can we begin to think of what we can do, what is within our control, opportunities that our innovations can find market, and you just need somebody to give you some little push so that you make it on your own. I just wanted to.
Thank you very much, Prof. Yeah, that is wisdom from the old, so they've had. Now, as we conclude this session, I would like to thank you very much. And just as a reminder, I hope you guys are not so hungry because we also took our breakfast late. As we conclude, just to encourage all of us, and when it comes to youth issues and innovation and jobs and all this, there's this lady called Eva. She's a very good friend of mine. I think you heard her name being mentioned. And I'll just tell you something about her that could encourage us to move forward. What I've learned over the short life that I've lived on this earth is that you will not be so much remembered for analyzing problems, that you are the best analyzer of problems that exist, or you are the best complainer. You will not be remembered for that. But you will be remembered for bringing solutions to the problems that you identify. And I know, and I believe that the youth have that in them. What Eva did, she identified a problem. Part of the many things that she has done, there is one that is very important as far as water and sanitation is concerned. And this was the issue of waste management by hotels. And it's not the fecal sludge, but another type of waste. This is the oils from the hotel. See, a big hotel like this, they have a lot of oil that collects when they do the cleaning and all that. So we have that trap where they normally get the oils. The oil is separated, the fats from the kitchen and everywhere is separated so that it does not go into the waste treatment plant. So she identified that challenge within hotels in Nairobi, the Serena, all these big hotels that you see. It's a big challenge for them to deal with the fats and the oils that come from their processes. So she started small and then started going to these hotels. She would go and dislodge those oil taps, wherever, and then she would take this to treatment. And with time, she was able to train a number of people that she could work with. And now you go to Nairobi today, for those who don't know, she's a big name within the private sector because she does that work. It's not a clean job. You not go there with a suit. I've seen her in two worlds, when she's doing that job, the way she looks like, and when she's on a stage like this, the way she looks like. If you come to the conference, I think you'll meet her. Then you ask her, is there the money that comes from that job, is it clean money? Of course, it's very clean money. She gets good cash from that. What I'm trying to say is that we need to be able to identify problems, analyze them, yes, but we should not remain at problems. We need to go a step further and provide solutions. And the youth have it, because you have the right education, you have the right motivation, you don't have all these baggages that maybe other people might be having. You even don't have health issues, but you're still quite healthy. You can work late at night, you can wake up early in the morning, you can go clubbing the whole day, and the following morning at 8 you're in the office. Try that as an old person. It won't work. So we have what it takes. I think we just need to move steps further, and we should be able to contribute so much to this wash sector. I think this is a very good indication of what will be happening in the main conference. I can see the points that have come up. I would ask the rapporteurs, kindly, you give me the scripts that you have written, because we need to have those points. So for now, we have come to the end of this. We will go out there for a group photo. So as you go out, pick your meal card. There's a lady seated at the entrance. So lunch will be served, you go far right and then downstairs. I think that's where lunch will be. But you need to present your meal card. But in the meantime, we take a group photo. I want to thank you very much for being good students, good listeners and contributors. God bless you, and enjoy your afternoon and enjoy your meal. Asanteni sana. Thank you. So where